Welcome. Today we're going to be studying section 5.4. It's a 5-step problem-solving strategy. Before you do chapter or section 5.4, please check page 54. It shows you the 5 steps that we're going to be using. Our textbook will use this for every story problem, and we will be using the same process as we're learning how to do several different kinds of things. The first thing we're going to do is learn how to solve a problem that would involve a proportion by using our 5 steps. So here's the problem. We have a mathematics instructor. He asserted that student test grades are directly proportional to the amount of time spent studying. So grades times spent are the two things that he says are related. We have Brent, who studies 15 hours for a final exam and earns a score of 75. At this rate, what score would he have received if he had studied for 18 hours? The first step is to familiarize, which means to read the problem over a couple of times, make sure you know what the question is that's being asked, what you're trying to find, and we're going to use a variable. Please always choose a variable and say what it represents. Well, our variable could be X or S or A or B, whatever. I'm going to use an X. And it's going to be the score, because that's what we're trying to find, the score he would have gotten if he'd studied for 18 hours. Score for 18 hours. Then we want to translate into a proportion. A proportion is a kind of equation. It has an equal sign in it. So we're going to translate it into an equation. Well, we have two things that we're comparing: the hours studying and the score received on our test. He studied for 15 hours and had a score of 75. We want to know what score he would have if he studied for 18 hours. Notice that on both sides of my proportion, I have the same things being compared. Hours are on top, score is on bottom. 18 is the number of hours, X is the score that we think he will get. We're going to write our cross products equation like we were doing in the last section. We'll do 15 times X and 18 times 75. 18 times 75 is 1,350. That equals 15 times X. I'm going to divide both sides by 15, and I'll find out that X would equal 90, because 15 divided into 1,350 is 90. So we've solved the problem. Now we could check our problem and see if it actually works. Is 15 over 75 actually equal to 18 over 90? Is that a proportion? Well, we know that 18 times 75 is 1,350. We already did that above. We know that 18 times 75 is 1,350. So is 90 times 15 also 1,350? I check on my calculator. Sure enough, it is. 90 times 15 is 1,350. So we've checked, and we are pretty certain of our answer. The last step is to state your answer by writing a sentence that answers the question. The sentence does not have to be long and complicated. It can be very short. He would score 90. So that's the process for solving a problem using a proportion. So I've got a problem here for you to take a look at. See if you can do this one. You can pause the recording and come back to it after you've solved the problem. Okay, here's the solution. Jared's SUV traveled 310 miles on 15.5 gallons of gas. At this rate, how many gallons would be needed to travel 465 miles? So we're going to use a variable that describes what we're looking for. Let G equal the gallons needed. So then we'll translate by writing it into a proportion. The two things that we have here are gallons and miles traveled. So if we have 310 miles and 15.5 gallons of gas, we want to know how many gallons would be for 465 miles. So miles to gallons, miles on top on the left, miles on top on the right, and we're looking for G, the gallons. One of the most important things about a proportion is to compare the things in the same order. People make a mistake, they get their numbers in the wrong place. So you want to double check. That's why I wrote in words miles and gallons. You don't have to do that, but it's a way to keep yourself from flipping the numbers and getting them in the wrong place. So now we're going to solve. We're going to take our cross products, 310 gallons and 465 times 15.5, 465 times 15.5 is 7207.5 times G. We'll divide the 310 on both sides. So 7207.5, you'll divide that by 310. This is where you need your calculator. We're going to need 23 1/4, 23.25 gallons. You won't always get whole number answers. Sometimes you'll get a decimal answer. We can check by doing our cross products again. I have 310 over 15.5 and 465 over 23.25. We've already found that the 465 times 15.5 side is 7207.5. So take your calculator and do 23.25. Multiply that by 310. You get 7207.5. That means that we have the correct number there. The last step here is to state. We're going to write a sentence that answers the question. The question was, how many gallons would be needed to travel 465 miles? Well, we would need 23.25 gallons are needed for 465 miles. Note, when you're doing your homework, you need to practice writing out the full steps. On our test, if you don't write out the steps, you're going to miss points. So please do study the problems that they have in section 5.4. They've got a lot of them. They're well written out and easy to understand. Try the practice problems there in the exercise set and make sure that you contact me with any questions.